Here we are on Cricbuzz Comm Box, halfway through India's innings, or rather New Zealand's innings, after India won the toss and asked New Zealand to bat first. Early wicket for Team India, but then it's been all New Zealand after that, having not lost any wickets, and yet they haven't quite run away with it in terms of runs. Let's just update you in terms of where New Zealand are at the halfway mark in this first of three T20 internationals from Jaipur. 65 for 1 without having lost any more wickets. You'd imagine there could have been another 10 or 15 runs to the good. Mark Chapman, 42 of 40. Martin Guptill, 19 of 19. Hasn't really found his feet yet. Hasn't got much of the strike either. Let's try and assess this first 10 overs in the company of Ajay Jadeja. Ajay, it looked after that first wicket that India were going to be all over New Zealand, but a bit of consolidation and solid from the man from Hong Kong, Mark Chapman.
Yeah, Mark Chapman's making his presence felt. He's actually kept all the strike to himself. I mean, he's hogged all the strike. And it seems like, Martin Guptill's going at a different pace. He's not getting on, but he's only played, 19 balls out of the 60 that have been bowled. So it's been Chapman all the way, and it was tough when he came in. I'm with you on that. At one point, it did look like when your first wicket, when the ball came back, that India would, try to seize this opportunity that they got. We keep complaining, or, as Indian cricket fans, we don't get wickets in the power play. Here you had that opportunity. But after that, we still waited for something to happen. And New Zealand has capitalized, and they're now sitting in the foundation has been laid.
Yet again, we talk about that. We had mentioned that during the T20 World Cup about the number of times India got more than one wicket in the power play. And I think it was a string of 16 or 17 T20 internationals. So certainly, if this is preparation looking ahead for a year's time, one area they'll definitely want to look at.
Yeah, it's an area that you want to look at. And when you get to the real games that really matter, when you're playing a knockout game, whether it's a final, semi-final, or the one that you have to make it, win that one to make it, it is always the start of the game. And you could be bowling first or batting first. But, the start is an important aspect in those games. Yes, on a weaker team, Scotland, Namibia, you could be 3 down and you come back. Or, they could be no loss for 45 and then you can come back into the game. But when you're playing Australia, Pakistan, New Zealand, these are teams that if you don't make a dent at the start, then you're always behind that, 8 ball, as they say it. And that's something that India would be looking at improving on.
Now, what have India done with their bowlers? We saw that blistering start by Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. There were a few suggestions on, at least on social media, as to why he found his place ahead of others. Well, he certainly answered, if there are any critics around. 2 overs, 1 for 5. That lovely in-swinger that got rid of Mitchell early on. Deepak Chahar, if anything, the only expensive one. But Ajay, the spinners have again pulled things back. The experience of Ravichandran Ashwin in his 3 overs and later Akshar Patel.
Yes, Ravichandran Ashwin's looked good. He came on even in the power play. He bowled 1 over there. And that was the stage that we were talking a little earlier, that, you could have looked to capitalize and, make a much bigger dent. But, Ravichandran Ashwin's also making a comeback. He's a great bowler. He's been around for long. But it plays on his mind as well. So at the end of the day today, his numbers will look the best. I have no doubts in my mind with 10 overs to go, because he's actually bowled out, 75% of his quota. So with numbers, he'd look the best. But because there's no wicket column in anybody else's column except Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, when this inning ends and 20 over, I won't be surprised that, New Zealand get to that 170 or plus minus score there. And then these numbers would look even good if you're just looking at the economy. But is that the role that Ashwin is going to play for India? Is that a role that, so that's something we'll have to wait and see how that 1 more over that is left, how that's going to be used, and what is the role that India wants Ashwin to play. Be economical or be the bowler that he is, one of the best spinners in the world, and making an impact in the game where he has a good game and not just have average games every time.
Now, the question is, will they get to that 170 type total from here? They've certainly got wickets in hand, but what about the batting to follow? No Kane Williamson, remember, in this side. Mark Chapman's filling in beautifully so far. The 2 men to follow, Ajay, both very aggressive. They play that game naturally. The 2 wicketkeeper batsmen in Glenn Phillips and Tim Seifert found a little form later on in the T20 World Cup, and then Rachin Ravindra to follow. So they'll certainly want to utilize the second half better than the first, purely in terms of runs.
I'm totally with you, and I have no doubts in my mind. If the first, 10 overs got them to close to 70, with only one wicket down and the players that are yet to come, I don't see anything less than 100. Add another 100 to that minimum. An Indian fan would say, you want it to be less, but the reality of cricket and the way the game is played these days, I don't see anything less than 170 at this stage. Maybe closer to my total than. Whoever.
I knew it was somehow getting there. I knew somehow we were getting there. My 150 is looking under threat as far as you're concerned.
Oh, 150 is out of play, Gautam. I mean, and I don't blame you. I mean, it's you look at what the wickets were, and this definitely a surface that looks much better. It's coming on nicer to the bat. If there is some help, and there is a lot of help for the seamers right at the top. But once you get into this stage of the game, it's all timing, and everything's going to be flying out of the park. Well, maybe we'll get closer to 200. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, very prophetic, because as you said the words flying out of the park, Martin Guptill found his mojo and has hit Siraj out of the park. So I think you're already on the right track. Not that I expected you not to be, but
No.
let's finish by just talking about the role to be played by India's death bowlers. Obviously, Bhuvi is more seen early on in the innings and he's played his role. Siraj and Deepak Chahar, big role for them to finish well, to try and make sure it's maybe not 200, but 175.
Yeah, they try their best. And, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, with his experience, probably would come out trumps ahead of these two young boys that you talked about, Siraj and Chahar. But what did surprise me, that if you were going to use Siraj for the end overs, then you probably should have used, Harshal Patel. Looking at these two young guys, both are special players, not trying to, undermine anybody, but they have different skill sets. So if you were going to use Siraj in the latter out of the innings, I would have probably played, Harshal Patel there, because Siraj is an out-and-out pure attacking bowler. And asking him to do the defensive role, yes, maybe evolve and get better. But I would have liked to see Siraj open with Bhuvneshwar Kumar right at the top, or somebody else. But that's his role. I don't expect a lot from him towards the end. I'd be happy to be proven wrong and be surprised and see something special.
Well, for the moment, he's finished half his quota. He's bowled the 11th over, got hit for a 6 and a 4. We shall see how Rohit Sharma rotates his bowlers in the last few overs. For the moment, at least in the words of Ajay Jadeja, it's looking like a big total for New Zealand. Just how big? India's death bowlers will have a say on that. We'll wrap it up all at the end. For now, that's all from Cricbuzz Comm Box.